All right, this one is for the haters. Every time I post a Vanderpump Rules reaction video, not everybody, some people in the comments say, you know what, it's really inappropriate for you as a psychologist to talk about this group of, very nuanced people without having watched all of the previous 11 seasons or 10 seasons. All that I have watched, and I am open about this, all I have watched is the finale of last year and then all of the reunion episodes. And people feel like I've got, these half-cocked theories as a consequence of not really knowing all of the complexity of the show. And I think they're wrong. So here's the deal. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the relationship between Tom Sandoval and James Kennedy. In particular, I'm going to argue that James Kennedy has zero right to be upset with Tom Sandoval. His level of outrage, I think, is ridiculous. I think it's recreational. I think he's just seeking attention. If I can convince you of that, you have to hit the like button. If I can't convince you of that, you can don't hit the down button. It's bad for the algorithm. You just send me a hate message or whatever. Turn a blind eye. Be forgiving, okay? Okay, let's get into it. First of all, this was a pretty uneventful episode. They go up to Tahoe to go look at Lisa Vanderpump's new restaurant. I think it's called Wolf or something like that, Wolves. And everybody's on their best behavior for the most part. They show up. Brock, Ariana doesn't come. Brock is there, and he wears a remarkable bathing suit. It's ill-fitting, but I do admire his level of confidence. I'm jealous of that. So he's there, and everybody else is just he's splashing around, showing his stuff off, and everybody's just sort of milling about, and they're fine. I will say Brock does run in a robe in his bathing suit. He runs into Sandoval in the kitchen, and he goes, man, we're not really enemies with you. We're just really hurt friends. Which brings me back to this idea of seeking attention. In what world has Brock been harmed by Sandoval? Why is Brock a hurt friend? Brock doesn't give a shit about this, but he does want his little piece of attention. And maybe that bathing suit isn't big enough to get him enough attention, so he's pursuing it via camera time with Tom. Anyway, they all go off to Lisa's restaurant, which is, under construction, and Lisa says, hey, why don't you take a hammer and hit the wall and express your frustrations? Like she wants to turn it into like a therapeutic rage room. And, everybody goes up and says one thing. James goes up there and goes, take better care of Graham Cracker, and hits the wall, whatever. But then Tom goes up there and turns it into a real rage room. Hits the wall and screams, Charles Manson's son.
Scumbag and cheaters! Worm with a mustache! Lala! Motherfucking Sandoval!
It makes sense to me that Tom is, and it's expected that Tom is hurt by the scrutiny he has faced as a consequence of his affair with Raquel and the way he's been seen in society. And people like me have been very critical of his personality, his interpersonal style, all of that. I understand it, and I think most people get that. What I think is new for people is Tom is also very resentful, in particular of his friends, Lala and Sheena and others who have gone on to podcasts, gone out into the spotlight, and made money off of their outrage about Tom.
Talking shit about me on social media, selling merch, hardcore, pushing conspiracy theories on podcasts.
And I think he's right. And it's interesting to me that the audience seems to struggle with holding their anger towards Tom because of what he did to Ariana and what he did with Raquel, and his kind of inability to really apologize for it, and the fact that he also has a reason to be hurt by his friends, right? Lala, Sheena, everybody went on podcasts, made money off of him in a very direct and intentional way. They profited off of him, and they made it worse for him. They blew this thing up probably more than it would have been blown up had they not been trying to make money off of him. And it's hard for me to, honestly, I don't understand how the audience in general can't hold both of those things. It's like everybody is against Tom, he's the devil, and that's it. And therefore everybody has a right to pile on and attack him. Which brings us to James Kennedy, who in previous episodes has been really clear about how he's been hurt by Tom. Tom was his big brother, and James Kennedy, who had, a previous relationship with Raquel, was engaged to Raquel. Like, how could Tom hook up with Raquel? And it was so hurtful for James, and woe is me, and woe is me, and woe is me. And I have said from the very start, this is all made up. James has no right to be this outraged about Tom's relationship with Raquel.
Big debate for me as it relates to James is whether or not he has a deep well of emotion, if he is struggling with insecurity, if he feels heartbroken about Raquel, his fiance, being with another man, if he's hurt by Sandoval for having been his big brother and then abandoning him, if that's what's going on, or if this well of emotion really is a puddle that is just attention. Like this whole act of him getting up and wanting to fight, I think it's for TV. I think he knows what he needs to do to be the cool kid here, and he's stepping into that.
See, okay?
You will be in your dressing room. You won't be on stage.
Okay. I'm gonna get sent for a timeout. I get a spank bottom, Andy, at lunchtime. Lisa, I get a spank bottom.
James loves this, right? You don't vacillate from ready to fight to being the class clown. He just wants the attention.
And everybody said, you're a lunatic, what an irresponsible psychologist you are, you don't have any idea what's happening, there's so much nuance and complexity here, and you guys all, not everybody, some people attack me in unfavorable ways in the comments because you think I've misread James. But today, or this episode, they sit down and they talk. And what James says is, and I think it's important to listen, James says,
if you were smart enough, you could have ended things with Ariana and then actually made things work out with Raquel without things blowing up the way they did. I mean, it just comes down to not being able to, like, man up and, like, leave the relationship.
What James is telling Tom is, we are all upset because of the way you engaged with Raquel. We were upset with the way that you treated our friend, Ariana. Right? What he's not saying is, how dare you want to be with my ex? What he's not saying is, I still am pining after Raquel, and I'm hurt by the fact that she was with you. How could you stab me in the back? Right? He doesn't really care about Raquel. He's in a long-term relationship with Allie. They have a house together. They even have graham cracker together. I struggle to, I can't figure out why people want to believe that James is hurt by the affair with Raquel. By James's own admission, he's only hurt by the way that Tom treated Ariana, which makes him no more hurt, no more damaged than anybody else in that group. And yet, every single episode so far this season, he's had to have one-on-one time with Tom to talk through the emotional experience and how he was betrayed by Tom. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? And I don't understand why people let him get away with it. It's just attention-seeking behavior. I get that he's endearing, but it's just attention-seeking behavior. Now, just to be really clear, all of this is not, I'm not saying that Tom is right or Tom's a good person or Tom's whatever, selfless. I'm not siding with Tom in that way. I'm just acknowledging that there are pieces of the way he's being treated by other people that I think, for which I think he has a reason to be frustrated. All right. I feel like that seemed like a hell of an argument. If I'm right, you got to hit the like button. I'll see you next week.